Welcome to the Week 7 Fantasy Roundup with Ruben and Ryan. We're here to give you some of the best advice for who you should start for your DraftKings Weekly League. I'm going to get started off with mentioning who we have at our starting quarterback. I'm starting Aaron Rodgers at 8,800 playing at home against Carolina, and Ruben's starting Colin Kaepernick playing at Denver. So, Ruben, what are your thoughts on Kaepernick this week?
Okay, for Kaepernick, I decided to go the cheaper route at quarterback. He's coming in at only $6,500. They're playing in Denver, and Denver's got a great run defense, so I think the 49ers are going to have to pass more than normal, and their running backs didn't do well at all at St. Louis on Monday Night Football, so I think it's going to be 70-80% of the plays being passing plays. They're playing a high-powered offense in the Broncos, so they're going to either be playing catch-up or at least they're going to be in a shootout. And so at $6,500 with his running ability on top of that, I think Kaepernick's a great deal. Just some other quarterbacks I want to mention that are coming in at great values are Kirk Cousins at $7,400 versus Tennessee. Yes, he may not be a real-life good quarterback, but fantasy, he's been pretty solid. He's playing Tennessee's defense, which is 22nd. Is 22nd against opposing quarterbacks in fantasy. Eli Manning, $6,200. They're playing at Dallas, and Dallas is ranked 6th, and you see the red listing of 6th there for Dallas, and it might scare you away, but I don't think Dallas's defense is really that good. I don't think it's sustainable. I don't think they're much improved from last year. Just they've been winning time of possession, and their defense hasn't really been tested. I think they will this week, and I think Eli Manning is going to bounce back from that horrific performance against the Eagles last week. And then I like Roethlisberger, and coming in at $5,700. That's a very, very low price. He had a horrible week at Cleveland last Sunday. They're playing middle-ranked defense here with the Houston Texans, ranked 16th. But at $5,700, he's one of the cheapest starting quarterbacks, and really, outside of just a couple of performances, he's been very good in fantasy this year. So I'm going to switch over to running backs now, and the running backs that I am starting are Le'Veon Bell and Ben Tate. And looking at your team, Ryan, I see Le'Veon Bell and Ben Tate. So there's a consensus between us two here. Why are you in such favor of those two guys, and are there any other names that people should consider out there?
Well, I think obviously with Le'Veon Bell, always a threat to go 100 yards rushing, and in the DraftKings format, you get 3 points for that. Typically, he's going to give you 2 to 3 receptions, and he's always a threat to take it for a touchdown. So that's a great asset to have, and he's only at $6,600, pretty cheap. They're playing at home against Houston. Ben Tate playing against Jacksonville. It's at Jacksonville, but Tate's only $5,300. The Browns lead the league in rushing touchdowns, so look for Tate to get a ton of work against a really bad Jacksonville team. Some other running backs I want to highlight. Obviously, Matt Forte, the most expensive at $9,400. Forte already has over 40 receptions. Now he's starting to get the rushing yards along with that. So having that dual threat of getting those points for receptions and having that chance to get over 100 yards rushing makes him a great play this week, playing against Miami at home. Andre Ellington at $6,500 playing at Oakland. I think it's a great play. And then Bishop Sankey playing at Washington at $3,900. He's getting the start now over Sean Green, so this may be the time for the rookie to sort of start earning more playing time and put up some good stats. And he's only $3,900, so that's a cheap play that you can maybe throw in if you're trying to save some money and maybe the flex position. Receivers, Ruben, I see that you're starting Ruben Randall, Antonio Brown, and Antonio Holmes from the Raiders. My receivers, I have Brandon Marshall at $6,300. I'm going with Golden Tate and Marquise Colston. Why don't you tell us why you chose some of those receivers for this week?
Okay, get it right, Ryan. It's Andre Holmes. It's the little brother of John Holmes, and by little I mean he's only 8 inches. But I like these receivers. Ruben Randall, he's been targeted. In fact, it's been mentioned many times. He's top 5 in the league in red zone targets. Eventually, this is going to lead to a lot of end zone scores. Ruben Randall's now the #1 receiver in the Giants' offense, which I think is a good offense, other than last Sunday. And as mentioned, I think Eli Manning's going to have a good game in Dallas, and so too will Ruben Randall. Antonio Brown, maybe it's a good thing for you that he didn't score last week, because if he didn't score last week, I think his odds of scoring this week go up. He's always going to get you at least 80 to 90 yards, often even more. I think if you're going to spend a lot of money this week, spend a lot of money on him. He's coming in at 7,900. And then good old little brother Andre Holmes. He's still a little bit of an unknown commodity here, coming in at $4,800. He's very, very cheap. He's been targeted over 20 times over the last 2 weeks. He's 6'4". He's an imposing receiver. I don't think the Cardinals, even though they're a pretty good defense overall, they're not a great pass defense. They've been banged up, and I think that Andre Holmes can take advantage of the smaller secondary that the Cardinals have. Once again, I'd go with Randall, Brown, and Holmes. I'm looking at tight ends now, and for the tight end I'm going to start this week, it's Jordan Reed coming in at 5,000. I see, Ryan, that you're going to start Vernon Davis, which might seem a little risky considering his, his health concerns. But what do you feel about Vernon Davis this week?
Well, you already mentioned that you like Kaepernick for this week, and I just think that the 49ers are going to have to score to keep up with the Broncos in Denver. Vernon Davis, like you said, he's coming back from injury. I think he should be close to 100% this week. Look for him to be sort of a security blanket for Kaepernick, because again, they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. And so I think he's a big target in the red zone, and so he may not have a ton of catches for you, but he's always a risk to get 1 to 2 touchdowns once they get in the red zone. So I'm sort of banking on that. And again, we always talk about this. You want those guys with those high ceilings that could just have an explosion. And Davis is one of those guys who could get you 2 touchdowns, 5 to 6 catches, and that's a great spot. And only spending $4,500 at the tight end position, that's great value there. What about your defense and flex position this week, Ruben?
Okay, at flex, and my flex, I believe, is your flex, Lamar Miller. He's a featured back now. Might not seem like a great matchup at Chicago, but this isn't the Bears defense of 2 years ago. Being the featured back, I think he's going to get at least 20 touches. Their offensive line is good. Their running game has been good all year, whether it's been Moreno or Lamar Miller. Who knows what his capabilities are in the backfield as a receiver, but at least he's not like Andre Williams where he gets no catches. He'll get you at least a few catches in this PPR format. But more importantly, he's almost guaranteed to get 20 touches, and I think that's going to be good news, especially considering that the Bears defense is not that great. And also on top of that, considering that he's only $5,300, he's relatively inexpensive. Now, for my defense, I'm starting the Seahawks. I still believe them. I think they're the best defense in the NFL. When it comes to defenses in fantasy, sometimes that doesn't match up with the best defenses in the NFL and real football. But the Seahawks, coming in at $3,200, I think it's the cheapest you're going to get them all year. They're playing at St. Louis. Who knows with Austin Davis? Those young quarterbacks, unproven quarterbacks, always have some implosion. So I think that with Austin Davis, it's going to come this week. I think the Seahawks are going to really capitalize. They're angry coming off that loss against the Cowboys. I see that your defense, Ryan, is the Browns. Why do you like the Browns this week?
I mean, it's pretty simple. Even though they're playing on the road, and they haven't been a strong fantasy defense the first 6 weeks of the season, they're playing at Jacksonville. Blake Bortles having those rookie mistakes. The Browns have been capitalizing on some of the turnovers they have been causing. So I just see that the Jaguars typically are going to have 1 to 3 turnovers a game, and I think the Browns can hold them to a low point total with their rushing attack and just controlling the clock. So it's an easy way for them to accumulate some points. And with Lamar Miller, the Bears defense I think is ranked 7th, and they're red on DraftKings. But like you said, I think that's a little overshadowed by the risk that you're taking by Miller could have a pretty good game because the Bears really aren't that good of a defense. So don't be scared off by those red numbers that you may see next to a player. Look at the value based on their price compared to some of the other players. We just want to remind you guys to check on fflockerroom.com and check every Friday. We have DraftKings Top Plays, Bargains, and Bust of the Week by Tom Schreiner, a.k.a. the Fantasy Football Junkie, and Chris Ziza. They mention some of the guys that we talk about. They give their opinions on some of the best values for Week 7. Anything you want to end on, Ruben, before we finish this video?
Yeah, just real quickly, for a defense that I would stay away from, and often the most useful piece of advice that we can give are the the players or defenses that you can stay away from. I would be very reluctant to start the Cardinals defense in Oakland. It seems like an easy matchup, but as mentioned, the Cardinals defense is a little banged up. And with Tony Sperano being at the helm now in Oakland, I think Oakland's defense is going to be halfway decent. And so at $3,400, being the most expensive defense, I would just shy away from the Cardinals. Overall, Ryan and I, where we try to help you the most is, obviously you can just, as mentioned, look at the green listings and red listings. Green usually meaning, hey, got a favorable matchup, red meaning unfavorable. But where we think we can help you is pointing out some of those matchups that may seem unfavorable, but we think are favorable. And so that's why for a lot of these names that we've mentioned, they may not at first seem like good matchups, but there may be more to that. Often teams are listed in red just simply because they haven't faced an opposing receiving core, tight end, or running back that's really that good, and therefore their ranking is a little inflated. So yeah, lastly, just remember you can hit us up at our Twitter feed. It's Fantasy Profs, Fantasy PROFS, and that is pretty much it.
All right, thanks for watching this week, and good luck with your DraftKings weekly leagues.